Many people think it's a great idea, except that it takes a lot of time, it requires a lot of energy and commitment. And actually, when there are 12 of us doing it, it's a lot less overwhelming, you know? So there's also an activist side where we say, yeah, what we're doing is kind of crazy. But at the same time, that's the kind of society we want to move toward. So, well, if we don't do it, no one else is going to do it for us.
Welcome to Demos Kratos. We've made several reports about eco-communities on this channel, and I get the feeling that we've made you want to start your own project too. How do I know that? It's because, well, I read your comments. Yes, I read your comments. And I realized that there are a lot of you who are trying to create an eco-village, but you quickly realize that it takes a lot of time. Identifying the people, place, legal structure, and funding sources is time-consuming. In short, it's a mess. And you know what? Well, that's not the case for everyone. Well, yeah, you saw it in the title of the video. I went to meet the residents of the Manor of Possibilities. An eco-community established within 6 months. In 6 months, they brought together about 15 people. They bought a mansion of 460 square meters on a hectare of land. And that's just the beginning, because ultimately they would like to have about 20 people living in this mansion and in a straw earthwood house that they plan to build themselves. It's a big project. When we visited, they had just gotten the keys. The images you will see are the very first moments of the life of the Manor of Possibilities. You'll see they were already off to a good start and in a great dynamic. And when I went to meet them, it was mainly to ask them 3 questions. The first one was, how did they manage to move so quickly? Yes, I'm a little interested. Second question, by wanting to go too fast, didn't they rush the project? The third question, which I'm particularly interested in as someone who's always in a hurry, is, did you see it with the container house? The third question is, how can we also create an eco-place really quickly? So to answer these 3 questions, I went to see 3 people. Sylvain, one of the co-founders of the place, Gwenelle, one of the residents, and Pierre-Yves, a specialist in eco-places, who came to the manor specifically to answer my questions. And their answers are going to be very interesting. Yep, I'm telling you this in advance, because yes, this is a feedback. So I've already been there, I know what they're going to say, and it's really interesting. So, watch this video all the way to the end, you're going to be amazed. Maybe I'm overselling the video, maybe it's just so you'll watch until the end and the watch time will be good. To know for sure, watch the full video. Enjoy! But before we start, just a quick word to thank all of you who support us financially on Typee. It's very important because that's what helps us fund these documentaries. Currently, our Tipeee and UTIP are too low to continue making videos like this. We simply don't have the money anymore to pay, well, the cameraman behind this camera, the editor, myself, the equipment, the transportation. We can no longer afford to make these documentaries. So if you can please really support us on UTIP or TP, it's really money that goes directly into the documentaries. So if you want to see videos like this, all the links are in the video description. And if you're a company or an association, don't hesitate to contact Ethic Production. It's the production company we created, and that produces all our documentaries. Through Ethic Productions, we create videos for associations and companies to finance Demos Kratos. All the details and links are in the description. I won't bother you any longer, but thank you for supporting Demos Kratos. Without you, we wouldn't exist anymore.
Enjoy watching, have a great video, and see you later.
Sylvain, how did you get involved in the Manor of Possibilities project?
So I discovered this place because I'm, well, a real estate agent, and I came across this manor that seemed to me like an ideal place to set up a co-housing project. So originally I was working on another project. I had bought a piece of land and we wanted on which there were no buildings. And so we had made the plans, everything was ready. But you had to be self-promoting, self-building, have the money, have the time, and bring everything together. Combining the numerous remaining conditions and factors made the task virtually impossible. So contrary to what you might think, it's because property is expensive that it's going to be more complicated. And now we can already live there while the renovation and the new buildings we're going to build next to it are happening. Right now we're living together as roommates, but later each of us will have our own private spaces and we'll share the rest. 100 square meters of shared space inside and like a hectare of land without buildings. Politically, we have something that unites us, but we're very different when it comes to the project. Unfortunately. The manor is about 350 to 360 square meters, plus an attic of 100 square meters. On the ground, 70 beyond 1 meter 80, and next to it, there are the 300 square meters. So that's still quite a lot of space. We also chose to, place the longère. We have a new building, and we call it the longère.
The earth straw wood house?
The earth straw wood house will resemble a longère. The foundation details, such as whether it will be on stilts, are still undecided. But it will be an extension of the manor with a slight reorientation to really face fully south, in terms of orientation for bioclimatism and how. And so here we are in the upper part, we're close to the church, and this is the space we reserve for ourselves as humans. The impact, and so we make the farmhouse as compact as possible. We don't build extensions on all sides because we want the footprint to be limited. We want to reduce costs. We're going to take our place. So, for example, we cut down 2 fir trees. We're going to have to trim an oak tree reluctantly, but that's how it is. We just can't avoid it. We need the space. So we're still making a place for ourselves, but after that, we're very careful about it. We believe that even dead trees should remain standing because they shelter a wide range of biodiversity. Basically, we're going to be about 10 households and we'll be around 20 people, give or take. So it's a project that's also based on age groups. It's intergenerational because we're going to have 2 births at the end of August, beginning of September, so it'll range from 0 to 91 years old. But in the ground floor wings, these are connected to the 100 square meters of shared space. So the idea is 2 single-story spaces so that elderly people can, spend their final days in nice conditions with, basically it's a family, we're recreating a family. Back in the day, in the longhouses in the farms, we used to have up to 3 generations living together. Well, here, we'll actually have the equivalent of 4 generations in the manor.
So we have an intergenerational eco-community of about 20 people with eco-friendly construction, a reflection on democracy and the desire to live in harmony with nature. In short, what more could you ask for? So now you understand the scale of the project and why I had to go meet them. The most remarkable aspect of this story is the speed at which they assembled the project, rather than its scale. Can you believe it? When they contacted me, they hadn't even signed the lease yet. They were just thinking maybe we'll have a mansion or something. Months later, I arrived at the place. They had just gotten the keys and finished everything. There was a vegetable garden, there were all the arrangements, they had planned where they were going to build, there were mobile homes, they were really far along. The question burning on my lips during my entire stay was, tell me your secret, how did you manage to go so fast? And that's what we're going to see right now. We're working on a project that's moving very fast. In less than a year, you discovered the manor, you bought it. You set up the project very quickly with people who came to buy it. How did you set it up so fast?
Yes, so before this project, there was another project, a piece of land with no construction, and it didn't work out. And so it didn't work out because I discovered this place. And so, but the people followed, actually, the people from the previous project followed. So that's a bit how it came together. It came together pretty quickly with people we knew or didn't know. That's on the human side, but we still were, the core values of the project spoke to everyone. That's what united us.
So Sylvain was the first person we contacted. We had an initial phone call where we explained things to him. Well, here it is. We want to have a tiny house built. We're looking for a place to put it so we can live in shared housing and so on, because we want to live with other people and build something together. He listened to us and said he found it interesting and would discuss it with the rest of the group. And so there was one of the couples who were in the group at that time who got a little scared at that moment, thinking, what? An idea of a tiny house, but that wasn't the idea at all. We wanted to live in a mansion all together. For us, that doesn't work at all. We're leaving, and so that's how we arrived. A little bit, we felt like we kind of blew up the group that was already there. We didn't feel very, very good, not very comfortable. But there you go, the group came back together.
On the technical side, having some knowledge about the various real estate statuses is beneficial. I was very interested in the status in participatory housing with exchange groups on the internet. So actually we looked for the most suitable tool. We worked with a notary, I know, someone I'm used to working with, so it was pretty quick. Because of that, the legal side is always there. It's like a toolbox. We go in, and if we don't have a hammer, we'll take another tool to drive the nail in. It's about finding the most practical one. That's what we did. We went with a real estate partnership for allocation. So it's a bit like a regular real estate partnership, but it's a special kind of real estate partnership. Let's say this space is for this household and that other space is for another household. And we have like common areas, a bit like a condominium. We have shares, common spaces.
For example, we chose an apartment, a small apartment of 50 square meters. While it may not seem significant, it was larger than the tiny house we had originally planned to live in.
3 times the size of the tiny house. I said, wow.
That's right. So we decided on 50 square meters, and so we paid for a future home to be built of 50 square meters. So basically it's a piece of the garden that's about 50 square meters.
Then as for the financing, well, everyone just brought their own money. For some it was 200 and something, 200 and a few thousand. For others it was 43,000. For others it was 20,000. And for others it was 9,000. Basically, that's it. So everyone brought their own money and we created shares for each apartment and everything. But there are people who haven't yet put in the amount they should have, and others who put in more. That's managed within the company with partner accounts.
And since for us in particular, our goal isn't to live in the manor, in an apartment in the manor, but in the newly built one. Actually, we bought a right to build. It's the future space that we're going to occupy in the complete project.
And who do you pay it to? What is it? Is it something with the city hall or is it to the collective?
To the real estate civil partnership.
Okay, so you reserve this part of the land, actually.
That's it, exactly. And so now that we've paid for that, which isn't a lot, because the price per square meter in Treffendel isn't very high, so now we still have to build it, pay for the work, the earthworks, basically, the whole construction of the building, along with the others who will also be in the new building. That was clear?
Let's recap all of that a bit. Well, actually, they had a real estate agent on their side. That really helps, you could put it that way. And on top of that, they had already formed part of the group before starting the project. The Manor of Possibilities took 6 months to build, but a favorable foundation allowed the project to progress quickly. It's noteworthy that many things ultimately depend on the initiative of only a handful of individuals, who bought the place and then resold shares to future members through the real estate partnership company. This demonstrates that to expedite progress, one must sometimes take the initiative. But be careful, without forgetting to then include, well, all the other members in a truly democratic decision-making process so that the project really remains collective. But by wanting to go too fast, isn't there a risk that the future residents won't be able to fit into a project that wasn't thought out from the very beginning with them? In other words, hasn't speed overshadowed the importance of living together? You were telling me earlier, when we were talking, there isn't a formal charter about the place even though most people share the same philosophy. You met each other very quickly and now you live together even though you didn't all know each other before. Aren't you afraid that moving too fast might make things more complicated for the rest of the project?
Well, first of all, we have a charter, but how actually it was the charter from the previous project. And that's kind of what you find most of the time in a lot of participatory housing projects with a strong focus on ecology and solidarity. So actually, the charter, for us, I don't even have it in mind. The charter, we live it. It's inside us. We have it internally. Each of us carries these values. So the charter is more for communicating to the outside than for us. We don't need it. Actually, we need to find the way, the energy to say things to each other, and it's not easy. Because sometimes, how do we do it? Aren't we going to hurt the other person's feelings? So it's on a human level, it's quite complicated. We learn to do things together, and it's actually quite rewarding. Here, our project, strangely enough, which might seem fragile, is actually strong inside each of us, I think, in each person. And together, we are much stronger. We're actually much more solid together when we know how to work together.
We all want this to work, actually. We all want it to work. So we all have a stake in making it work. Because when you think about it, well, everyone has put their savings into the project. It's really a whole life project, isn't it? We decided to live together, to buy a property together, which really isn't trivial at all in our time. Especially, well, with the pandemic where we don't know what's waiting for us next and so on. And so we already have a stake in making sure that communication goes well, that exchanges happen smoothly, and that the group works. Because otherwise, well, we'll really be in a bad situation. Well, it's kind of all our futures that we're playing with together, actually. So I think that it kind of forces us, from a human perspective, to make a lot of effort so that it works. That's what I tell myself. That's the hope I have anyway.
And have you thought about putting some tools in place? Maybe pretty quickly, since you didn't know each other before and now you're all kind of living on top of each other in the manor. At least until the outbuildings are renovated, until the house is built. How are you going to live together without creating conflicts that could harm the project?
Well, if you talk to me about tools, you see, I'll talk to you about gardening tools. So everyone brought their own gardening tools. I'm doing it on purpose, but of course I'm doing it on purpose because here we're dealing with something concrete. We're not talking about participatory housing. The place is frequently crowded, particularly during the pandemic. There are a lot of people who went through the pandemic and are saying, oh, I can't do this anymore. Oh, my life in the city and everything, it's unbearable. So they dream about it, but it's not reality. I want to insist that when I say tools, I mean gardening tools and tools for do-it-yourself projects that we shared. and we bring everything we have, and we put out what we have at the right moment. Some people have a lot, others have nothing. It's not a problem, but the tools we're dealing with are more concrete, not side issues. Non-violent communication methods and all that, which can be very good, but then sometimes there are people who really make the tool their own, that they end up monopolizing the conversation, and they're the only ones who know how to speak using this communication method. We all have fears, but if our fears are too present, it's not going to work because we're not a reassuring project. We'd love for it to be built next door in about 2.5 years so we could have our own spaces. But if that's not the case, it's not a big deal. What matters is also the quality of what we're experiencing in the present moment.
And don't you ever have that fear sometimes, thinking to yourself, I've committed to a project where I'm going to have to live with it, Sylvain was telling me. 15 or 20 people who are going to arrive at the place that you don't know well yet, and some that you don't know at all, because they haven't arrived on the project yet. Doesn't it scare you to think about that? I'm putting, well, all my chances, my whole future, with people I know that I still don't really understand.
Well, yes, of course. It's a little stressful. However, we believe it's in our best interest for it to succeed, and we'll do everything possible to ensure it does. But there are times when we stop and say to ourselves, we're completely crazy, why did we do that? It's mostly when we talk about it to people. We come from Paris, well, we both used to live in Paris. And when we talk about it to people who are completely outside of this and not at all part of that world, but not at all in that world, what do they say? What did you do? I told my colleagues a few weeks ago that we were going to move to Brittany soon, that we had bought a manor with 5 other families. They looked at me, but why? Aren't you afraid? Well, exactly the same questions, you know. And so having this outside perspective that says, but it's not, it's completely against the grain of the society we're in. And well, actually, yes, but that's exactly what we want, actually. So there's really an ideal behind it. To tell ourselves that we're trying to help create the society of tomorrow that we'd like to see happen. Actually, more solidarity between generations, more ecology, more resilience in everyday life. For example, the fact of growing your own vegetable garden. Well, yes, I mean, I think there are plenty of people who think it's a great idea. Except that it takes a lot of time, it requires a lot of energy and commitment. And actually, when there are 12 of us doing it, well, it's a lot less overwhelming, you know. So there's also a kind of activism in saying, well, yeah, maybe what we're doing is a little crazy, but at the same time, this is the kind of society we want to move toward. So, well, if we don't do it, no one else is going to do it for us, you know.
I'd like you to give me your opinion on the Manoir des Possibles, because it's a project that came to life really quickly, in less than a year. They assembled a team, located and purchased the place, and established the legal structures. After 2 months of living there, they have established a vegetable garden and plan to accommodate 20 people on the site. Basically, it's a large-scale project done in a short amount of time. Isn't it, well, complicated for something so big to last when it's being done so quickly?
Well, you shouldn't even be afraid. That is to say, you shouldn't start out thinking that obviously, since every project is unique, it's a prototype anyway. So it's not a repetitive program, right? So that's their approach. It works, so good luck to them. In the group, there are different skills, different skills that can be related to real estate issues, to eco-housing issues, to the issue of gardening and its connection with food production. So all of that comes together around it, and to succeed, the challenge that can sometimes come up in certain groups is that there are people who were more active in the early stages. And so afterwards, the issue comes up of really sharing and giving space to the last person who joined. And the last person who joins is very important. She may appear naive, but what she says is often an interesting stimulus to revitalize the group. We're dealing with living things. It's like the seasons. There's always a need to warm things up. That's what needs to be maintained in positive living environments. Keep that sense of wonder and that ability to say we're taking a step, we're taking a risk. That's why we're here. It's also about telling ourselves we're not necessarily going to get stuck in a rut. Staying in completely repetitive ways of living where we're sulking, where we have no control over anything. We're here to challenge ourselves. That's why I'm here, at least. And so I tell myself, despite my grey hair, I let myself be challenged.
Unlike the other eco-communities we were able to visit with Demos Kratos, it's interesting to note that the Manor of Possibilities doesn't seem to be afraid of what we call the damn human factor. And I'll just take a quick break. Yes, Mom, I said damn, yes. But here there's a reason, because the damn human factor is a real concept theorized by the astrophysicist Hubert Reeves. And to put it simply, it's the idea that even if you plan a project from A to Z, leaving nothing to chance. There will always be problems with humans, because our human relationships are made of conflicts. That's it, the damn human factor will always be there and you have to deal with it. That's exactly what we saw in our previous documentary, At the Utopia, where we wanted to emphasize the difficulties of living together in a community. And we saw that eco-villages often put tools in place to resolve these conflicts. The Manoir des Possibles is currently more focused on gardening tools rather than non-violent communication tools. But that's okay. Maybe it means that for now they've found another way. Maybe it'll come up later. Maybe they'll even invent their own tools. What's certain is that there will be conflicts. That's for sure, when you live with more than a dozen people for weeks, months, or even years together. There will be conflicts, and we'll have to learn to deal with them and resolve them for, well, the sustainability of the project. The lesson I want to take from the experience at the Manor is that setting up conflict resolution tools and methods of non-violent communication is important. It's not always the first step in creating an eco-community. The initial excitement can help you get past disagreements and move forward with the project more quickly. But be careful, you have to make sure that everyone has a say. As Pierre-Yves says, you have to be careful that the momentum of the first residents doesn't become a constraint for those who come after. Otherwise, the sustainability of the entire project could be called into question. To wrap up this documentary, I really wanted to talk a bit longer with Pierre-Yves, who has a pretty broad vision of eco-communities. To ask him how we too can quickly build our own eco-community. Yes, we're in a hurry, but we can't compromise the project's stability. We want something sustainable. I've repeated it multiple times in this documentary. Sustainable, that's the key. We want to move fast, but we also want it to last over time. We don't want it to fall apart after a year. Anyway, we're going to go over all of that with him. For you, what would be the first step to create an eco-village?
The first step is to take a step. Taking a step is a kind of sidestep, as we sometimes say. Compared to what the world offers, the market or the services provided by communities and the world of public housing, the first step is to tell yourself, I can get involved. It's primarily a matter of willpower, wanting to be an active participant. And then, well, there are a lot of things that need to be dealt with. the governance of the group, how the group regulates itself, how everyone has a say, how we take turns, possibly with tasks or speaking opportunities. How we create a shared vision, guidelines, charter, and intention. Things that can be shared and that reinforce the collective dynamic. How do we find legal and financial rules? What are the entities that purchase? And is it a legal entity, like an allocation company, a cooperative, or a resident association? In short, all the arrangements we know, we share them with others, because all of this is meant to be shared. And then financially, well, it's also a matter of capabilities. So you have to quickly realize the abilities of each person. Financial capability or ability. On the construction site, decisions must be made regarding the building project, land, and real estate. What type of housing, what are we going to share? And then, what type of materials? Are we going to use external contractors or not? So, and then, let's say the fifth element is the relationship to the territory. The relationship. Because sometimes there are other groups we can help each other with, as I mentioned. The territory contains resources. And more and more, I think you've already noticed, well, projects are concerned with interacting with their territory. All these points, well, we can start with any of them, but anyway, we'll have to address them together. It's a bit like a game of snakes and ladders, and then we take 2 steps back, and so on. Revisiting governance and legal status is necessary even after establishment, as it's essential to come back to these aspects once you're set up. The first step is the right one. If he chooses to discuss the charter, that would be excellent. Because actually what matters behind all this is experiencing the collective. And that's often what actually makes groups strong, is that people have moved forward together. The group's success boosts its self-confidence. Because they say to themselves, we're not even afraid, we can do it. To find housing and network, use associations like Habitat Participatif Ouest, Eco-Habitat Group in Nord-Pas-de-Calais, and Eco-Quartier Strasbourg in Strasbourg. Well, there you go. And often we organize open house days together, which are actually European, done with the Belgians and the Germans. And this year, they're going to take place in September. So the first step is to find out where the open houses are. That's the first thing.
Eco places or what?
Participatory housing and eco places, open to all who wish to join. And then on YouTube, like you, there are also testimonials. The Habitat Participatif Ouest has completed 5 testimonials from 2 groups since the start of the year. Plus the books like Eco Villages and Participatory Housing. That's a book that just came out from Rustica Publishing. There's also another recent one called The Keys to Participatory Housing. There's also, in addition to the life of this whole community movement, Participatory Housing France. There are also facilitators, sometimes called AMU User Support Assistants. The idea is to coach and support the users. So we're starting to develop some skills. A small network is forming around lighthousing with skilled facilitators for participatory housing. They don't have a monopoly. It's not exclusive, but it helps. It also helps to see the skills around you.
People desire to reside peacefully in a tiny house or mobile home on a piece of land, but legally it remains very complex. What advice do you have on that?
Well, actually, you have to tackle the issue yourself. Because it's a whole world you have to deal with notaries and bankers, because those often go together. This issue of legal and financial matters, we negotiated with certain banks so that they would be more attentive. So we're starting to make these arrangements heard. But it's still work. There have been advances, especially the Allure Law, a step that recognized participatory housing as a civic initiative. That was back when Cécile Duflot was Minister of Housing in 2014. And then, which established 2 statuses, the resident cooperative status and the allocation company status. So these advances are not perfect yet. And then in rural areas, there has been progress with what are called the stichiles. It's the authorization, it's the authorization. To be able to live in an agricultural area, in a reversible dwelling, which doesn't have a concrete foundation and uses phytopurification or something similar, that doesn't require heavy structures, sanitation systems, or anything similar. There are discussions with the local council, the town hall, and the community. So it's Rennes Metropole regarding the type of light housing. Is it the nest size, the yurt, that kind of thing? That's because everyone is searching for themselves. But the idea is interesting because the main point is still to bring these hamlets back to life with the idea that biodiversity is respected and that there are also people living there. The Aix-Marseille University Network of Facilitators has a website called RAHP, Network of Facilitators for Participatory Housing, RAHP, which stands for Network of Facilitators for Participatory Housing. And there's the list. There are quite a few present, but not all of them. And then there's also the Oasis Network, which has listed companions, guides. The guide, well, sometimes it's someone we work with, someone we share things with. It's not necessarily a professional guide, but having someone who's a bit of an outsider who says, well, I feel your thing or I don't feel it, and then just being able to talk about it is already a form of support. The idea of having a third party is important.
This meeting with the Manoir and Pierre-Yves was very interesting for me. It allowed me to understand quite a lot of very interesting things. First of all, if you want to start a project more quickly, you shouldn't be afraid to take the initiative, to take the lead, and not wait for 15 people to be with you. The outcome depends on your goal. But the experience at the Manor shows us that we don't need to wait until we have a close-knit community of 20 people. A charter for non-violent communication tools? In the end, all strategies are good. As Pierre-Yves says, the first step is the right one. What is your goal? Your first step will be the right one. As Sylvain advises, avoid locking yourself into a specific legal structure. Sure, the civil partnership for allocation is really cool because it allows you to take the initiative to buy a place and then resell shares to future members. But every vision of an eco-place has a legal structure that suits it. So don't hesitate to let your vision evolve and as a result, change your legal structure too. For those who would like to live on agricultural land with light housing, really go check out the Stickles. I didn't have time to go into it in this documentary, but I did some research off camera and it's really interesting. So I'll put some links in the description for you. The Stickles, a really good lead to follow. I hope these stories from the Manor of Possibilities have managed to motivate you, have given you some keys to quickly and efficiently start your own eco-community project too.
And if that's the case, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video.
That's really very important to share the video. And especially to everyone who can support us. On Tipeee or Utip, please do it. Currently, Demos Kratos is on standby since we lack the resources to fund large-scale documentaries like this one. So, we're thinking about bringing sponsored videos back to the channel or looking for partnerships, things like that. But we'd rather it be you who help us finance the channel rather than sponsors. So, there you go. If you can, all the links are in the video description. And if you want to reach out to Ethic Production so we can help you with your audiovisual projects, it's the same. The email is contactethicprod.com. That could help us fund the next documentary reports. As audiovisual professionals, we'd love to collaborate with you on your projects. It's a key part of what we do. Thanks for watching until the end. See you soon on Demos Kratos.